Hey, what's up, everybody? I am your host, Colin Sheehan of Doubling Down with Colin and Vinny, and we have a special edition of Doubling Down. No, Vinny's not here today, and no, we're not going to be putting together some daily doubles. Instead, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Kentucky Derby, and specifically a tournament that I have entered that is being hosted by USA Steeplechase on Twitter, on X. And it was one that I just heard about this weekend that I wanted to get involved in. And I figured since I put together a top 10 of stable of Kentucky Derby horses to get into this tournament, why not make a little bit of video and put out there what my thoughts are so far on the Derby trail and get some feedback from all of you. Would love to have you all cheer me along and help me as I have to make some decisions. Those decisions are involved in the rules, which you can look at here. I had to pick a stable of 10 two-year-olds with the possibility of substituting one of those two-year-olds on the first of each month starting January 1st, 2026. The scores are going to be tracked using the Kentucky Derby point system, with the most points after the Derby being the determining factor of who wins the contest. So with that in mind, there was some strategy to putting in what my stable was going to look like. I wanted to take into consideration really a couple of different factors, which is what I'll walk through. And as I walk through that, you'll end up getting a sense of who my top 10 is. Speaking of the top 10, here is the current Kentucky Derby standings. With further ado, winning the Kentucky Jockey Club this weekend for Brad Cox. He picks up 10 points on the standings. And Ted Noffey, of course, your Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, is atop that leaderboard with 40 points. And I figure that's where I'll start in giving you some behind the scenes of decision making that I made when I had to decide who to use in my stable. And Ted Noffey was one that, although is not going to be picking up points for a few months, probably as they point him towards that Florida trail, towards the Kentucky Derby, he's one that I know that I was going to want later in the tournament, and I didn't want to have to waste one of my picks later on Ted Noffey. He was first place in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, first in the Breeders' Futurity. You can see his Equibase speed figures there of 114 and a 100. When you look at the list of the Derby trail so far, you see him there on top, and you also see him in the middle. Those are two of the best speed figures we've had so far, obviously very early in the two-year-old campaign. I knew Ted Noffey is going to be one that's going to pick me up points, hopefully. Stays healthy, stays on the trail. Didn't want to have to waste a bullet there. Next up for me was Incredibolt. Incredibolt, as we pull up his info here for you, was first in the Street Sense, earning a 95. I thought he was very impressive in that performance. And that performance looks even better with the performance of Universe in the Kentucky Jockey Club. The owners have high hopes that he can follow Sovereignty's path, who won that exact same race, the Street Sense. He has 2 wins at Churchill Downs. He finished in the Kentucky Derby future pool at 28-1. He's one that Vinny mentioned this week on Doubling Down, and is one that I wanted to have in my top 10. Next up for me was Desert Gate. He was second in the American Pharaoh. This was a horse that I was really high on going into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. However, he had to scratch with a fever or an infection. I love how he battled in the American Pharaoh race. And, when I decided to put together my stable, I made some decisions that I wanted to have kind of each region covered. So that way I knew as prep races were coming up, hopefully I wasn't going to be missing out on, points that are happening out in California or points that might be happening in New York. And that'll lend you a little hint on who else is going to be on my list. So Desert Gate in the Bob Baffert barn is one that I'm really high on. I was disappointed he didn't run in the Juvenile, but he'll be one that is in my stable as well. Next up was a horse who I was pretty high on in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile ended up hammering that exacta with Ted Noffey. And Mr. AP, he earned a 113 in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I think he relished that stretch out. And he's another horse on that western region that I kind of considered when I put together the stable of Desert Gate and Mr. AP. Those will be two that I'll be focused on from the West Coast standpoint. Pull up his Equibase past performances here for you. He is an American Pharaoh. And look at the speed figures. 66, 100, 106, 113. And you can see that those numbers increased as the distance increased, including that Breeders' Cup Juvenile mile and a 16th race. Mr. AP will be one that I have my eyes on as well. Next up for my stable that I had to put together for this tournament was number 14 in the Kentucky Derby Wager Pool 2. He just won the Kentucky Jockey Club, and that is Further Ado. Now, I'll have to be honest in telling you that I don't know that Further Ado is necessarily one of the horses that would be in my top 10 for the Kentucky Derby. I think he had a extremely impressive performance, obviously, winning by 20 lengths up at Keeneland on October 10th. He earned a 114 Equibase speed figure. You didn't see him on the list of top Equibase speed figures because that race wasn't actually on the Kentucky Derby Trail, and that's what my graphic is currently built off of. Came back in the Kentucky Jockey Club with a race that was okay. You know, I don't know that it was, you know, he got the job done. It's really hard as a 2-year-old to come back after putting up a race like this with that 114. Wouldn't really necessarily expect him to improve off of that. And if you watch Doubling Down this week, he was not my single. He did beat both me and Vinny, but we felt like it was a good opportunity to maybe take a shot against a horse like Further Ado. But part of my strategy for this tournament was to try and pick up some points. And I felt confident in Further Ado's chances to at least get in the top 3. It's only 10 points to the winner, but I'm hoping that picking up some, you know, putting those points in the bag early on this tournament is going to maybe be enough. That just gets me over the top when we get to the end. And so with that in mind, I also took Soldier and Diplomat. This was the horse that I had singled for my Doubling Down. He finished 3rd in that Kentucky Jockey Club on Saturday, earning a 91, a horse that really I felt was a grinded out coming down the stretch. I think he shows a lot of energy going into the late part of the race, and using the same strategy that I just talked about with Further Ado was what points can I kind of put in the bag now. He ended up picking up a few points for me, finishing 3rd. He almost got there. It would have been a really nice way to kick off the Doubling Down Daily Double. He goes off at 84-1 in the Kentucky Derby Future Pool number 2. As Vinny mentioned, he was concerned about the distance, and you know, Universe obviously had a really nice finish to that race. Next up might be a horse that you probably haven't heard about yet. It was numbered 31 in the Future Pool. We'll pull up the past performances for you here. And that is Rancho de Santa Fe. Here we go. Sorry about that. Here we go. This is out of the Brad Cox barn. He is a Tappet with Smart Strike on the dam side. And what I really like about this horse is consistency in his first 2 starts. Puts up an 86 and an 88. Breaks his maiden at Ellis on August 24th, going a mile. Winning by a length and 3/4. Then comes back to Keeneland on October 11th. Follows that up with an 88 Equibase speed figure. This is a horse who would be in my top 10. He's kind of a under the radar horse so far. He's bred and owned by Gary and Mary West. He was also 4 or 5 wide on that first turn. That stood out to me. The Tap It Out of the Smart Strike mare. He's the third winner produced by his multiple graded stakes winning dam Family Tree, who was also campaigned by the Wests. And the Family Tree bankrolled $733,000 in her career. A versatile runner, the daughter of Smart Strike, won over both dirt and turf surfaces, going short and going long. So the notes that I have there are flattering of the pedigree for number 31 Rancho Santa Fe. You see some angles pop up here. One of those being Tap It at the Classic Distance Grade 1. Obviously, these are looking at the wager past performances. There's not a race happening, so some of those angles obviously don't make sense right now in this moment. But anyways, Rancho de Santa Fe is one that I have put up on my stable. Next up was the morning line of 80-1 in Kentucky Derby Pool 2 and ended up closing at 37-1, which to me I thought was very interesting, that maybe I found a horse under the radar who others are high on, and that horse is the horse Mob. This horse is sired by Gunrunner, was a $560,000 Keeneland September 2024 sale. One broke his maiden, has raced once. That was November 23rd, going 6.5 furlongs in a maiden special weight for $120,000. I'm hoping that distance is not an issue with Gunrunner on top, and Street Sense on the dam side. Hopefully that is not an issue. He's trained by Brian Lynch, and a 90 in the Equibase speed figure first time out is what kind of caught my eye. And as I mentioned, to see a horse go morning line 80-1 and close 37-1 makes me think that he's not as much under the radar as I thought he might be. Next up is number 23, Local Knowledge, out of the Todd Pletcher barn. This horse is owned by Spendthrift Farm. Wanted to have a Pletcher in my stable, to be honest. He had a big debut going 6 furlongs. He got a 98 Equibase speed figure with Dylan Davis aboard at Keeneland on October 4th. You see a scratch on the past performances there. November 22nd, we'll have to do some digging to figure out what's next for Local Knowledge. This horse is sired by Yelpon. If you watch Doubling Down, he's a sire that I'm really high on. But obviously Vinny feels there's a concern about what distance these horses want to get. So 6 furlongs, maybe what expected first time out for Local Knowledge. Wanted a horse from Pletcher in my barn. We'll see. Hopefully he can pick up a couple points for me. Then we will go to number 36, going by the Kentucky Derby wager pool number 2. That's Talking. This is a horse that I'm really high on. Sired by Good Magic, a $600,000 Keeneland September yearling sale, trained by Danny Gargan. First time out, won up at Saratoga August 30th with Kendrick Carmouche aboard. Look who finished third in that race. It was none other than Further Ado. Well, he comes back to in the Champagne Stakes, finishing second behind Napoleon Solo, who had that big, huge effort. Look who was third. Universe. Universe is a horse who just came back with a nice run in the Kentucky Jockey Club. Those are two angles that I'm looking at for Talking, and I'll use that same analogy that I used as far as having Desert Gate and Mr. AP out on the West Coast. I think Talkin's probably pointed towards the Remsen, maybe that New York circuit, and Talkin is the one that is going to hopefully get me some points in that area. That's my 10. We'll run through them again for you, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments section. Who do you think I should drop maybe come January 1st, and who do you think I should pick up? We go with Ted Noffey, Incredible, Desert Gate, Mr. AP, Further Ado, Soldier and Diplomat, Rancho Santa Fe, Mob, Local Knowledge, and Talkin'. So those are my 10 to start off on this tournament. You could follow at USA Steeplechase, who will be posting results as the tournament goes along. And I'm currently in second place. So we got some points in that Kentucky Jockey Club. So my strategy so far is paying off. We'll see if we can keep it going. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know in the comments what you think of my top 10 and what are the moves that I should be making, or maybe give me some horses that I should keep my eye on as we turn towards 2026. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving as we go through these cold months here up in New England. And we'll see you on Doubling Down at the end of this week.